All right, hello and welcome to Digital Marketing Masterclass Live. As always, every Wednesday, it's our goal to bring in some really amazing marketing thought leaders, and today is no exception to that. Today we have Mackenzie Thompson from Save a Life. Mackenzie, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Chris.
This is going to be great. I know Save a Life because it's actually my mentor's company. I became really good friends, and then I eventually became kind of into a mentor relationship with Fritz Disk, who is would he be the CEO and founder of Save a Life?
Is that yeah?
Founder and CEO. He's probably one of the most amazing people I know. He's incredibly successful, incredibly kind, and has built an organization that is incredibly impressive. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So Mackenzie, what is your title there at Save a Life? And then also tell us a little bit about Save a Life.
Yep. So I am our Chief Growth Officer. So I focus on the growth of the company from our marketing, finance, operations, and development standpoint. And what Save Life is, we are a nonprofit organization that provides online healthcare education, training, and certification for all healthcare professionals. So what that kind of means in layman's terms is anybody that you've met in a medical office, anybody that knows how to do CPR or any type of medical training, every 2 years they are required to get certified in around 5 courses and complete some continuing medical education. So what we do is we provide all of that online. We are one of the first in the industry to provide both online training and certification. And to date, we've empowered about 4 million people to save a life. So what that looks like is 4 million people through the Save a Life sites have learned how to do CPR, ACLS, BLS, or PALS. So it's been a pretty amazing 10 years that we've been in business doing this and empowering people.
That's great. Now, when we're thinking about physicians and stuff like that, they already sort of know probably the large majority of these, of these approaches and these techniques to kind of learn them. But obviously, you got to get recertified. Don't they usually do that through their hospital or their health center, or where do you fit in? Where does the health center stop, and where do you fit in?
Correct. I mean, notoriously, a healthcare professional is going through a lot of schooling. So the skills that we're teaching healthcare professionals, they know and they use every single day in the hospital. So really being certified is an admin kind of check the box, make sure you revisit this information, make sure you're up on the latest standards and guidelines, and get it out of the way and practice it every single day. So where we connect is making it easier for those healthcare professionals to do it from the comfort of their home and online, instead of having to spend a weekend off of work to take an in-person class that can span from 1 to 4 days, depending on the type of course, and you're sitting in a classroom for the whole thing, when technology has advanced enough to allow us to do all of these trainings effectively online.
That's great. That's great. I think my wife actually used your course. They offered it at her work, and then she just kept getting bogged down at work and could never get to the internal training. And then there's literally a deadline when you have to have your certs. And she was just like, what am I going to do? And I was like, well, you got lucky. I happen to know a guy. And that's why I called Fritz. And he's like, it happens all the time. Yeah. It's just like, yeah.
Yeah, we not only help people save lives, but we save some lives by when they are up at that deadline and they just need this taken care of, and we help them out by just being like, you can do it in an hour. Here's the test. Get going.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, tell us a little bit about, so how long have you been with Save a Life?
I just hit my 7-year mark. So actually, I started as an intern in college, was able to work throughout part of college, and then took on a full-time position from there and started doing social media for the company, actually. And now I've kind of worked my way up from marketing assistant, marketing director, to now the chief growth officer. So I kind of oversee our new marketing director.
Wow. And that's actually really impressive, because what I do know about Fritz is that I believe one of the key reasons for success is he hires the best and the brightest, or you have to be very, very smart to be on that team, or you sort of don't last very long.
Yeah. Smart is more about dedication, and we really focus on empowerment of team members. So like, I want my team members to grow
Yeah.
and take over. I want them to take over my role. I want to empower them to be able to do that. So we really take that initiative, not just to our customers, but internally into our team and their growth and development.
That's great. That's great. Now, you implement a number of different approaches, from inbound marketing, paid advertising. How, walk me through a little bit of the day in the life when I look at your entire approach. What are the things that you find yourself doing, on a day-to-day, on the day-to-day?
We are a small but diversified team, I would say. Like, first to point out, we are about a team of 12 full-time employees, and we work with just 2 outside agencies to aid in some of our paid search and marketing. So what we do spans from paid search on Bing and Google, mainly Google. We have SEO work to focus on our organic optimization to make sure we're showing up. We do some efforts with ensuring we're building enough links to the site. We do paid search advertising. We do Google grants. We do app search ads, and we do some PR. I'll probably think of a few more as we're talking, but that's just off the top of my head of what some of the things that we're doing currently.
I probably should have asked it in reverse, like, what aren't you doing?
Yeah, maybe that, maybe. Tell me, what should I be doing? That'd be good to hear from
That's
you.
right. That's right.
Thought about this.
Well, I think one of the things in the short conversations I've had with you and how long I've known Fritz is that I think you guys are a very data-first company. What I mean by that is that it doesn't mean that you're exclusive to one particular channel or one particular approach. I think one of the things I've always respected about Save a Life is their attention to detail when it comes to analytics and data and things like that. How did you sort of get into the analytics world? Obviously you started as an intern, but I mean, is it from day one that you're saying, hey, these are the metrics that matter?
Well, we run traction within our company, and another book that we really follow the kind of thinking behind is Great by Choice. And in Great by Choice, they talk about bullets versus cannonballs, which I'm sure you've heard before. So in our end, we're really just shooting a lot of bullets, seeing what data gets brought back from that, and that's when we can launch our cannonballs to do full scale paid search and ads. So no, when I started, I had zero experience outside of some marketing and business classes in school where they're telling you the definitions of things. They're not showing you how that applies into the real world. So like, I was just completely trained in doing bullets on my own to see what could work. If things hit, as we say it, we would do a cannonball. So like, we're very data driven in that we have our exact acquisition numbers that we need to be hitting in order for it to make sense to spend on this amount. So we've been able to kind of really dial that in from a customer acquisition standpoint to know, okay, I'm willing to spend X number of dollars for a new customer to come in and purchase this course, or I'm willing to do a lower amount. If I know they have a higher lifetime value down the road, I can give them a larger discount here and know that in 2 years they will return and pay the full amount.
Yeah. So that's point number one, and that's one of the things that I try to implement that kind of thinking with my existing clients, because a lot of times my clients will come to me and they'll say, well, I'm just going to use a round number. Fairtech, we're going to pay you $100,000. Therefore, we're going to need, let's just say, $200,000 in return. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But then I'm like, well, talk to me about your products, right? Like, how long do people, what do they buy from you, and then how long do they buy from you? And they're like, well, I don't know, they'll spend $10,000 a year and they'll stay with us for 4 years. I'm like, well, then you got to stop thinking in a 1 year window. The critical thing you need to do is you need to understand the lifetime value of that client. You know what I mean? And so that's one of the things that I think what happens is that when companies or organizations think too short term, they kind of miss the forest from the trees, because there's a number of different things that you can do from a lifetime value perspective, whether it's upsells, downsells, or just the fact that a loyal client, as long as you have what we call client delight, stop thinking of them as a $10,000 client and start thinking of them as, if they stay 4 years, a $40,000 client.
Exactly.
The quicker you know your numbers, are true to those numbers, I think it changes the landscape of how much you're willing to invest for that first initial, acquisition.
Exactly. And our product's so interesting because we have a lot of wiggle room in how we can provide it. It's a 2-year certification window. So like we're kind of a subscription service, but it's an extremely long window of subscription. It's 2 years. In 2 years, I can't remember my old address I used to live at, So like that customer retention and like brand awareness of like, do you remember who you used 2 years ago? What's our follow-up cycle to make sure they have some brand recognition? You'd be like, I'm returning here. So you have that tied with us testing some like for life pricing. Like, do you sell the product for one higher price? So that customer returns. And we've been using our lifetime value to be like, well, we tested for life, probably did not price it high enough because people are returning 6 years later. And guess what? We're not going to be getting any return from them now, but we do need to maintain all their data, their course history, provide them customer service. So, should we increase the price of For Life for new customers? Would they be willing to purchase that one time and we guarantee they're in, or do I want them to just do I want their initial purchase to make sure that they're happy with the online service if it's their first purchase of online training?
And then how do you keep your brand in front of them? Because like, let's say hypothetically, I'm a doctor, I'm really busy. Then what I do is I search online and I try to find, hey, I can get certified in an hour, right? Then what happens after they've been certified and then they need to do this again next year or 2 years or something like that?
Yeah.
If they just type it in again, they might find somebody else. Like, how do you keep your name in front of them?
Yeah. So we have our customer lifecycle includes a pretty intensive email campaign where we start emailing them 2 months in advance of expiration because we know that's when their admins at the hospitals are telling them, hey, you're about to expire. So our goal is that our email and their admin's email are hitting the inbox at the same time and, problem solved. 1 hour later, admin, here you go. Don't bug me for another 2 years. Because the customers are really trying to get in and out. And then you have another layer of customers who want to learn for the first time, CPR. So they don't even know that technically this information expires every 2 years. Do you still have the information? You know how to do it? Yes. But if you want that certification card to say, if I'm a lifeguard, a babysitter, it expires every 2 years. And actually new information does come out about effective care. So you do want to kind of revisit that information at least to make sure you're providing the most effective care you can.
And then tell me about, let's pretend we're going to go down the buyer persona of a babysitter, right? Are there other things besides CPR that they'll eventually want? And so is there ways of getting CPR plus X or anything like that? Or is it, what are the other, I'm going to say, is it product lines or whatever that is? So I know what CPR is. What are the other ones that they have?
Yeah, so we offer 5 courses and 5 courses only. CPR, Basic Life Support, which is BLS, Pediatric Advanced Life Support, which is PALS, ACLS, which is Advanced Cardiac Life Support. And typically, if we're using the kind of babysitter example, they need CPR. Another add-on they could do is Basic Life Support. It's a more in-depth version, and you get more into like in the event of a burn or something like this, it gives you more in-depth information in like scenarios. So really they would only be required to do CPR. That is all the information that you need. It would kind of be on that person if they wanted to learn more. So really there isn't much of an add-on that we can do for those laypersons, but we're okay with that because we just want them to have that information. When we're talking about our actual advertising strategy, we're advertising for the more advanced courses that your healthcare professionals are using, like PALS and ACLS.
Now, I'm fascinated by the babysitter angle because when I prepped for this, I was thinking healthcare professional. Like, could you advertise to the mom who's going to have a babysitter that says, hey, you know what, it's very possible that you're not certified. And so the mom says, hey, before Thursday, I want you to have this. Or do you try to do it to the babysitter themselves? And my kids are too young to hire like a babysitter that we don't know, but I know that there's several websites that you can go on for babysitting. Do they require Do they require certification to be on those websites?
It's kind of like a badge, like your LinkedIn badge you can get. It's not required. Typically, it depends
Yeah.
what site. I mean, I don't have kids, so I don't know what those sites are really
Okay.
like. But that's a good idea right there.
Yeah.
But it would just be kind of like an add-on benefit if that person had that skill.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it's very interesting, but very difficult for your product, right? It's just that we talk about marketing. We say get the right product to the right person at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they're in your system, I think it's very easy to try to figure out what the right time is, and then you can go every 2 years from that.
Yep.
But like, how do you go and you advertise to someone that's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to spend advertising money or time, energy, or whatever that is. And it's like, hey, you know what? I don't even need to get recertified for another 16 months. You know what I mean? What do you do then?
It really is a challenge because like the whole idea of brand awareness that a lot of like paid search agencies are looking at, like do brand awareness and then, later down their cycle, they'll purchase. For us, it's like, well, later in their cycle could be 18 months from now. How can you tell me that window is from your efforts? So we tried to do kind of lead acquisition by having them fill out some type of form, if that's for our free app, for an ebook, an audio book, for a webinar. We had those lead acquisition forms to kind of capture their email. And one thing that we're testing is remind me to recertify. I just found you. Dang, I know I don't recertify for another 12 months. Here's my expiration date. Email me 2 months for my expiration date to remind me about you. So that's kind of our form of, you tell us when you're ready. If you found us now, you tell us when you're ready.
Yep. Yeah. Now, is there any other growth hacking that you can do? Do you do any growth hacking that says, hey, I'm going to get certified, and then if you tell 3 other people about us and they get certified, that, I don't know. Like, is that possible, or am I like my physician? I'm like, thanks, but $10 ain't going to move the needle for me.
We have a slew of add-ons kind of like that. So we have refer a friend where they can get a discount. We have like buy one, give one. Hey, here's a course. Go and share it with your friend. Just give them this next course for free. It's kind of our raving fan network. So it's like, hey, I had a great experience. Chris, I know you're a medical professional too. Forward an email, and then they get their first course for free with the goal that they're going to buy the second, return and purchase the second course.
Interesting. Now, what about institutionals? Do you ever also work with institutions? Like, let's say hypothetically, I run like a Christian summer camp. You know what I mean? The reason why I bring that up is I did that between my freshman and sophomore year. I would never do it again. It was like the hardest summer of my life. Kids are punks.
I went to CYO
anyhow,
summer camp.
I just remember getting certified. I remember getting certified, and they came in and they taught like 25 camp counselors all at one time. You know what I mean? I just wonder whether it's one of those things where a camp could say, before you arrive, you need to be certified.
So we do a couple of things like that. We do group sales. So kind of a admin person could purchase. I'll purchase 100 CPR courses, and I'll hand them out to all of my new hires, and then we'll give you an update of like, hey, this person completed. This was their passing score. Another thing that we do is kind of like white labeled courses on outside channels like MOOCs. So MOOCs, massive open online courses. Biggest ones being like Allison, Udemy, and Coursera. So we offer our courses there, and depending on the MOOC, they have larger kind of corporate clients that they do all the sales for us. So it requires no internal outreach from us. We outsource all of that. They have their networks, they have their connections. We just have the standards of being that course on their website. So it's kind of just like cut us straight to the consumer instead of needing to find all these decision makers when those websites have already found the decision makers for us. So that's their whole job, is to find more decision makers.
Yeah, that's interesting. One of the things that I've I took a course on, and it was forgive me. We were talking about people that would contribute basically they would tell information about themselves through surveys and things like that. And so I always thought that if you're gonna do that approach, you'd have to have the names, you'd have to email them and do that. But one of the things that's pretty interesting about MailChimp is that you can actually pay them a price per survey filled. And one of the things that's interesting about that is that while Udemy might already have the names as well, what you can also do is you can go to a source like not MailChimp, SurveyMonkey, and you can say, hey, you know what, I'm going to spend $9, right? And they'll reach out to doctors and they'll say, hey, when is your next certification? You know what I mean? And it's one of those things that's interesting that we're starting to see is just that we don't have to spend the time and energy to beg them to fill out the survey. SurveyMonkey does it for us. We pay a high cost per form fill, right? But the data at the end is sometimes worth it. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It does. I'm sorry I'm quiet because I'm taking notes where I'm like, yeah, we should do that.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? It's
Yeah.
right. Because I mean, like so much of the thing when you're a short-term staff like this, right? Sometimes I will pay for the end result as opposed to having to build the damn thing myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what's hard, right? And so like I love
a network of people.
I'll pay Udemy a premium to figure out who the target audience is and do all that stuff. You know what I mean? So that's very interesting, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I challenge like companies that don't want to have an explosive staff. I'm like, then when you find a partner, you're going to have to pay a premium for that. But like you said, one of the things that was very smart is if you know your lifetime value numbers. While a form fill might be worth $9 and you're only selling the course for $20, if I know that the lifetime value of that person is $40 or $60 or whatever it is, it's the price to acquire them first is expensive, but then after that, we have them for life, you know, or something like that.
Yeah. No, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Now tell me about the nurturing process. So is there any data that you guys have? And you don't have to reveal any trade secrets here, but like when a physician or someone like that comes to your website, do they research first and then they come back later? Or do you find that it's almost transactional in the aspect of when they come, they buy right away?
There's definitely a learning phase because you've got to think they've got 2 years to kind of make this decision. While they want to do it quickly, they've got to make sure the requirements are actually being met because we're still kind of in the brand awareness kind of early user experience phase because so many older healthcare professionals are used to doing it in person on the weekends for the past 30 years. They've been doing it the same way. So we're offering a new alternative. And that's why we've seen kind of our clientele really shift to the younger demographic from, 30 to 45 is our sweet spot. So, you've got to do more nurturing in terms of like, here's our accreditation, here's what we offer you, here's why it's a better alternative to in-person training. So you must make that like one for an SEO standpoint, but also for the user to understand what they're buying. Yeah.
And then do you have any library or anything like that of organizations, like literally just the company's name? Because one of the things I would kind of wonder is, how do I describe it? I'm wondering whether people say, okay, cool, I can do this online, but I probably would feel better if I spoke to my CME coordinator at my hospital to find out, does this count? You know what I mean? Like, so how do you fight that argument of like, yeah, it counts, all right? You have everything you need, the same thing you're gonna get, the same certificate you're gonna get there, you're gonna get from us, it counts, like relax. Like how do you deal with that?
I'm taking notes right now to say, we should provide a list of hospitals that have, or, organizations that have accepted our certification. We have credibility indicators on the website and on the product pages. So it's kind of like this hospital uses it, but we're just using, the biggest names out there. Hopefully that helps them feel a little bit better if they see Ascension or whatever uses our training. So I think that's a great idea to like provide that in the FAQ form when they reach out on chat to be like, hey, if you're worried, tell me the name of your hospital. I can tell you if somebody has, or here's a list of all of the past. I mean, that would be a long list, but it's a directory.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that's interesting is if this would be a form fill technology, but when you say, what's the institution you're working for? And what it would do is it would as you would type in the first 3 to 5 letters of that organization, a pop-up on the right-hand side would say, did you know that we have over 300 people from that organization who have been certified with us in the past?
Yeah.
Something like that would be like, at the moment of filling it out, you're like, oh, okay, good. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I know
that technology, it's out there, but it's yeah. Anyhow, sorry, I'm like this ideas.
Oh, I love it. I'm like, I didn't know I was going to need a notepad for this. This
Yeah.
call. I was like, all right, I have more ideas. Get ready, team. I'm not going to be like, oh gosh, Mackenzie's back again.
No, this is it's one of those things that I get to like literally put a cherry on top of like great companies. And what I mean by that is that they come in here and they built like this huge castle, and then like I put a flag at the top, and they're like, "Oh, I want to write that down." I'm like, "I promise you, you wouldn't be on the show if you guys weren't absolutely crushing." And I promise you, I don't.
I appreciate.
We don't put scrubs on the show.
I remember the first time we met. You gave us a whole slew of just like ideas and websites, and I was like, "Where are you learning all of this?" Like, I don't. Like, I'm involved in forums and like, groups that are all about growth of like SaaS companies or nonprofits or whatever at online digital companies. And I'm like, they're not talking about this in those forums. So like, where did you learn this?
Honestly, like I started the company when I was 21 years old, and one of the things that was very not interesting, but where I feel like my growth curve is that I stopped listening to the radio at a very young age. And what I mean by that is that I read some article and it said, hey, like, you're going to be behind the wheel of the car for, let's say, I think you live to be 80. You're going to be behind the wheel of your car for like 5.5 years, right? And so you can live 5.5 years worth of songs, or you can have 5.5 years worth of knowledge. And it started out with just audiobooks, but I found with audiobooks, I don't know how to describe it. It was like, I didn't need to know how every part of the sausage was made. And so ironically, where I got smarter was I got a YouTube premium account. Basically, I pay $10 a month and I have a laundry list of things that I just want to know, and I type it into YouTube and I just listen while I drive. And so I drive for 2 hours a day, 40 hours a month, and I just marinate in this stuff. And then the other hand is I get to meet and talk to people like you. And so I'll learn from you, and then I'll talk to somebody very similar to you, and I'll be like, oh, have you ever heard of this approach? They do this, this, and this. You know what I mean? And so I'm kind of a sponge intentionally, and then I get to talk on my own podcast 5 days a week. So
that helps too.
That's the other thing.
Get it all out that way.
Yeah. Because we also have to learn, if you're going to teach it, you got to know it. You know what I mean? And that's the challenge, is just making sure that you've done enough prep, at least mentally, to get on the camera and just kind of talk about some of these things, but so much of it is the grind, rubbing shoulders with smart people and just the grind. Yeah. Yep. So we were talking before, because what our company was doing is we were going to start working with you guys on something called Programmatic Advertising, which isn't so insanely new, but it's pretty new in the fact that there's very low adoption rate, And so one of the things that's very interesting about programmatic advertising, I literally just got off a sales call a couple minutes ago about it, and we were talking about it, and it's like the traditional ways that we know about advertising. We call it gated networks, all right, or gardens, or walled gardens. Jeez. Walled garden approach, standard stuff. You're talking about the Google network, you're talking about social media, you're talking about all these things. There are so many rules in the walled garden to protect themselves and really to maximize their own profits that they don't really allow you to know the client as well as you possibly could. Now, I thought that they cornered the market, that they knew the whole marketing approach, that they own the World Wide Web. But there's a number of different studies that say, you know what, out of the sites that allow you to advertise on their sites, these walled gardens, Google network, social media, stuff like that, it only represents 30% of the entire internet. And so what I started to do is I started to say, well, then who owns the rest? And then when I figured that out, that it was programmatic advertising, I was like, that's where I want to spend a lot of my time. And so what that's doing is it's allowing us to reach out to clients, to use AI technology to do hyper-targeting. And I don't know how to describe it, but it's very much been a gasoline on fire type experience. It's been really, really cool. So that kind of leads us to our conversation here is, we were talking about the idea of implementing programmatic advertising for your organization. And
Yeah, we just had our kickoff call today with your team, and we're excited to look into the channels that we don't even know that we're not on, the type of like display ads that you can share. These are assets that we've done and tested before, but on completely new channels, and the opportunity to do both like display, native, audio, like
yeah.
a lot of options I didn't even consider all being in one location, because like we've done podcast advertising before. You go one off, you go purchase, you connect with the what the podcast is about, purchase it. This does it all for you. So it's low
And
maintenance for a small team like ours. That's what we need. Is we need somebody else to do the grunt work. We'll provide you the assets, but like can this online tool automate all of this for us?
Yeah, and so that's what's interesting about the approach as well, is that, like you just said, it is going to allow us to figure out where to advertise and how to advertise. But what I love about the technology is, one, it auto bids, because before you'd have to have someone basically manning the control station at all time, or you would put in a set it and forget it bid, and then maybe adjust it maybe once every 2 days, once every 5 days. This is literally auto bidding, every minute, every second of the day. And then the other thing I like about it is we create your assets, and then what it does is it puts it into like 55,000 different networks and 55,000 different pieces of targeting. And so in theory, 8 to 12 ads turns into 140,000 different ad computations when you multiply it towards all this targeting. And so you just start thinking, it's like, wow, that's a massive umbrella. But what it also does is it hones it all the way down to the smallest common denominator. So what I mean by that is, like, I'll tell you this like pretty cool story, is that we're trying to implement it for one of these clients coming up, and they advertise in our football stadium, like our pro football stadium for the Eagles. Now they have a business to business product and they have a business to consumer product. And so what happens is that business to business people go to the football game to watch the game, and business to consumer people go to the same football game to watch the football game. They see the ads all throughout the stadium, but nobody's watching a football game to like basically do an online analysis of their products or services. But what is cool about it is that we geofence it. They don't have to opt in. They don't have to do anything like that. And when they leave, the business to consumer people are seeing the business consumer arguments, either in native advertising or display format. And the business to business people are seeing it in their ads and their content in a business to business advertising approach. So it's all set up so that people walked into the stadium, and when they left, assuming they had their device on them, that targeting is following them wherever they go. And I can do this in crazy ways, like the same power that I would do for LinkedIn, where I could put in the person's name and their title and all that stuff like that. It only worked if you're in LinkedIn. This has that power, but when they leave the stadium, I'm able to do it. You know what I mean? I'm able to do it by title, but in every other place on the web. So as you can see, I'm all geeked up about this.
And we're excited because, I mean, outside of sports, think about it. It's a hospital. It's the network within the hospital, the geofencing of the hospital area, the medical schools, entire university campuses that you find your target audience right there by doing the geofencing.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I think what it's going to do, obviously you can upload email lists and all that stuff too, but I think what's nuts is that once I have your device ID or your identity, which we figure out through third-party identification systems, I don't have to worry about cookies as much anymore. But I can also hit you so that you come to the stadium, you leave the stadium, you see a display ad, or you see a native article that looks like it was like written on Forbes, but it's actually your article. But then you can go home and I can literally see the same ad on your TV. So it's going to connect to your phone, it's going to connect to your podcast, it's going to connect to your TV. It's like this huge immersive retargeting experience that you just really can't get anywhere else. And I think it's scary as a consumer if I'm obvious about privacy, but it also allows you to get hyper specific on who you reach. Because like my wife won't get the same experience. What I mean by that is like, she's a nurse practitioner, and the ads that I get for SEMrush or Ahrefs or software programs, they follow me. But her device, we went to the same football game and her device, nothing.
Really different.
You know what I mean? So that's what is cool is that, I'm not wasting my ad on nurse practitioners for me. You know what I mean? But yeah. So sorry, I can geek out on this stuff pretty quickly.
No, I like it.
Yeah. So tell me about what is the future for like when healthcare changes and stuff like that, we start thinking about telemedicine, we start thinking about all of that stuff. Are you finding that the landscape has changed where I don't know, there's an argument by Scott Galloway that COVID sort of made us do the things we were going to do 10 years from now. It made us do it in 10 months.
Yep.
Or did you find that the adoption of technology was just explosive throughout the whole COVID process?
Unbelievably. I mean, think everything was shifting online, right? Nothing was in person. And who needed online education more than anybody? Healthcare professionals, because you had people going back into healthcare after having time off. It didn't matter. They still had to be certified. Even if they were available to help in the hospitals during the early stages of COVID, they had to be certified. So it was incredible for us because we hit our goals that we had set for 2024 in 2021. So it moved us forward that much in the span of 6 months. What we did not expect though was that scalability wise, we were not set up to handle that type of traffic because it wasn't just the US. I mean, it's a global pandemic, right? Everybody not only is searching, healthcare professionals, but also me, you, mom and dad at home, we felt helpless. Like we had nothing to do or help. We didn't know what was coming, no experience like that before. But we were kind of looking for something to do, and what can I learn or do to help?
Yeah.
How do I take an online CPR course in case somebody in my family does have trouble breathing, or I need to monitor something in my child who has just a cold and I don't even know it, and I'm too fearful. So it was just like an assurance factor for a lot of people. So you had U.S. healthcare professionals, global healthcare professionals, and laypersons all coming online some of them for the first time, and our websites were like, whoa.
Wow.
You didn't prepare me for this. So it was a lot of sleepless days and nights, but thankfully I was home anyway. I had nothing else to do to keep our websites up and growing and scalable to be able to take in all of that traffic. So not only did it allow us to reach a whole new group of people, a lot of learning experiences internally of okay, if we want to hit our mission of 10 million people by 2025 now, the website needs to be able to handle 5,000 people having a transaction at a time. So,
that's so funny. That's so funny because I think that we joke around all the time that a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, that's a good problem." I'm like, well, the second word in a good problem is still a problem, right? You know what I mean? It's the people problem. That are shoveling coal into the bottom of the boat. That's still a problem. You know what I mean? You're that's awesome. You get to go home. I gotta figure it out. Yeah, that's funny. We joke around when we get a new client. We say we got good news, bad news, and the good news is we got a new client, and the bad news is
gotta do all this
we got
again.
A new client. You know what I mean? So that's great. That's great. So obviously we saw how the landscape changed with COVID. Now, are you finding that it's keeping that pace? In other words, it wasn't like a blip, right? In other words, people are still, now that they got a taste for just basically, learning to solve this challenge online, it hasn't gone away, right?
It definitely hasn't gone away. The scale at which it was all coming in at one time has gone away. So we don't have 100,000 people on the site at one time, which I would love to have 100,000 people on the site now because our websites can handle it. So basically what we're doing is we're creating the systems and processes for when that day comes again. I'm not saying another pandemic, but once the audience kind of builds up and they're ready to move online, we're ready to serve everybody who's needing to be served. So it's dropped a little bit in terms of that large scale, but we are continuing to grow. And as of just, I think, 15 days ago, we hit 4 million lives empowered. So it took less than 6 months to hit another, the next million. So it's still been growing.
That's
quite
crazy.
quickly. Yeah.
Gosh, that's nuts. That's nuts. Yeah. Do you guys do anything with swimming pools and stuff like that? Because I'm wondering.
Like lifeguards? What do you mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Well, I mean, like, I don't know that you knew this or not, but the explosion of people that own pools now since COVID. So there was like a 2-year waiting list, and now it's been like 2 or 3 years. So more people have more pools in their backyard than like ever in American history, because they didn't go away on vacation.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting, right, to start to think about, you know what, like, you are your own lifeguard for your family. You know what I mean?
And
Yeah.
that's what you can learn in our CPR and BLS course is if
Yeah.
someone drowns, what to do. So that's a great point. If anybody listening has a pool, you should take one of those courses in the event of that emergency, because there are things you need to know, and you can save someone.
Yeah.
So it's better to know and not
Yeah.
need it than to need it and not know.
So we pay this obnoxious fee for my kids to go to this online. My kids are 6 and 4. We get this obnoxious fee to go to this swim school, and the swim school basically at a very young age, these kids are swimming. And the challenge that we have is our kids is now my youngest is so overconfident. So we were at a hotel and we're swimming in the pool and we're on the side, and he's been swimming for like 2 hours, and we just noticed that he dove in too far into the middle of the pool. Now usually he can dive in and swim over to the side.
Yeah.
But we just noticed he just went a little bit farther, and we had to like jump in and get him, right? And it doesn't take very long to do that.
No.
And I just remember thinking,
Any
like,
type
2
of
years ago I wanted a pool.
Yeah.
2 years ago I wanted a pool, and now, like, if I did have a pool, I would definitely be like that target audience to you guys, that I'm like, just because I can jump in and kind of save him, what happens if I got to treat him right after I saved him? You know, right after I got him on the side. It's crazy, right? But I think all of this stuff in the courses that you guys have, you can never just plan to just use it. My point is like, it's not like I'm going to learn CPR because I'm going to need it in January. I'm like, no, you need to know it because at that critical moment you need to know it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like insurance in your car. You can't wait to be in an accident to go buy insurance. You know?
Yeah. One funny story I have kind of about that is if you've ever watched that TV show This Is Us.
Yeah.
So I don't want to do too big of a spoiler alert, but like the whole show is centered around the dad, and the dad dies. So a little bit of a spoiler ahead of time.
I think it's been on long enough that you.
The dad dies of a heart attack, and the wife doesn't know what to do. So the dad dies. So right after that episode aired, we made a landing page called Savior Jack. The dad's name was Jack. It was basically get CPR certified. So like in the event of emergency, you know what to do. And it was okay in that situation because it's a fictional character. We're not like pointing blame at anybody, but like we got a couple of hundred transactions for free CPR for people to learn.
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. Yeah. That's nuts. Right?
Just fun things like that you get to kind of play around with and being like, oh, like how do we just reach this? Like we want people to learn. Like to make it clear, the nonprofit side is like we offer these courses CPR for free. If somebody can't afford it, or they're doing it like on their own dime and not from kind of some type of stipend. So like the whole point is to get the information to people so that they know it.
Yeah. Because you can't paint it on too thick. Like you can't make it a St. Jude's commercial. You know what I mean? Like you can't be too sad. I'm like, you're going to need to know this, and if you don't, it's going to be very, very bad for you.
Yeah,
it's
you
just
can
like
pull on heartstrings, but not too much.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's so cool. Well, I'm super excited to have you guys on the show. We're getting to be about that time. If my audience wanted to find out about Save a Life, how would they find out?
Yeah. So just visit us at savealife.com, and you can use coupon code Mackenzie, my name, to get any of our training courses for free. So that's all 5. You can get them for free just using my name and check out, or talk to us on chat. Tell them where you heard about us, and they'll get you all set up. Our customer service is a top tier team.
Wow. So for free. Free. You heard that. So if you are my audience and you're trying to get certified and you want to do this stuff, I think the barrier to entry that you would always assume is like, how much is it going to cost? Today it's free. All the information will be in the show notes. Mackenzie, you are an absolute rock star. Thank you for joining us. This has been wonderful. To my listeners and to my subscribers, Check back often, every Wednesday. We try to go boots on the ground. We try to get rock stars and thought leaders in the marketing space that are absolutely crushing it for their companies. That's why Mackenzie's here. That's why next Wednesday we're going to have people just like her to come in here and kind of say, hey, you know what? Let's take the theory and let me kind of show you how we applied it. My goal is that you're going to learn lessons from these thought leaders and you're going to apply it to your own marketing. And if you need any help, we'd be happy to help you out with that. All right, so please click on the notification, please subscribe. I want to make sure that videos like this are in your inbox or at least on the top of your YouTube channel as often as possible. So thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.